illustrated verses were nothing so much as bowers constructed by a male in order to procure sex. This was far from being my only insight, and I was not reluctant to let the great man know exactly what I thought. Somewhere in his papers there may still be evidence of my close reading of Eastern Oriental, with its impertinent corrections, its queries about his heavily enjambed lines, all of which I archly hoped might be helpful to him. I was, in short, a precocious horror, and you will not be at all astonished that John Slater and I did not become friends. But, London being London, I did keep on running into him over the years, and as he continued to write poetry, and I had ended up as the editor of the Modern Review, we knew many of the same people, and had reason to sit at the same table more than once. Time did not make the association easier. Indeed, as I became older, his physical presence became more and more disturbing. I will not say that I was obsessed with him, but I could not be in the same room without looking at him continually. I was drawn to him and repulsed by him all at once. He was an appallingly unapologetic narcissist, and so full of iconoclastic opinion and territorial enthusiasms that there was not a dinner party, be it ever so packed with the great and the good, where one could escape his increasingly bardic presence. Of course, I could not look at him without thinking of my poor, unhappy mother. In spite of the fact that we were so very intimately connected, it took all of 30 years for us to speak with more than superficial politeness. He was then 62, and while perhaps better known for his novels, the Amersham Satyricon had been a huge bestseller, he was still generally referred to as the poet John Slater, which was exactly how he looked. Rather wild and wind-burned, as if he'd recently returned from tramping over the moors or following Basho's path all the way to Agaki. Slater does seem to have worked very hard at the social side of literature, and there was scarcely a British poet or novelist whom he could not call his friend, or for whom he had not at some time done a favour. The Faber crowd he cultivated particularly, and it was at a Faber dinner party at the home of Charles Monteith where we finally came to talk to each other. Our conversation aside, I don't recall a great deal about the evening, except that Robert Lowell, the guest of honour, had inadvertently revealed that he didn't know who Slater was. This, one could hypothesize, is why Slater chose to turn and talk to me so urgently, calling me Mix, a name belonging to my family, and all that lost time at Allenhurst at High Wycombe. What he had to say was not in the least personal, but his use of the nickname had already touched me, and his voice, perhaps as a result of the famous American's careless judgment of his life, took on a wistful, elegiac tone, which I found unexpectedly moving. For the first time in years I looked at him closely. His face was puffy, its colour uncharacteristically a little grey. When he began to talk about revisiting Malaysia, a country where so much of Jew song and its successors had their roots, it was hard not to wonder if he might be tidying up his affairs. "Come with me," he said suddenly. I laughed sharply. He grasped my hand and held me with those damned eyes, and of course he was such a famous crumpeteer that I looked away, embarrassed. "We should go," he said. "Don't you think?" It was impossible to guess what he meant by we and should. "We must talk," he insisted. "It is very bad that we never have." This sudden intimacy was as off-putting as it was wished for. "I have no money," I said. "I have tons of it." He watched me closely as I poured more wine. "You've got a boyfriend," he suggested. "I have a very jealous cat." "I adore cats," he said. "I will come and talk to her." And suddenly his cab arrived, and he had to go on to a very glamorous party where he was expecting to meet John Lennon, and as he rose there was a general clamour of farewells, and it was my understanding that our conversation had been of no great moment, merely a cover for his embarrassment at the hands of Robert Lowell. But he telephoned me, at home in Old Church Street, at 8 o'clock the next morning, and it was very quickly clear that this journey was not at all impulsive. He had already arranged for the British Consul to pay for one ticket, while 2,000 words for Nova would fund another. He would be delighted to foot all of my expenses. My father had died just the year before, in circumstances that were not at all happy, a sulky sort of estrangement on my part, and it was not in the least dotty for me to think that John Slater was offering this trip as an opportunity for us to talk, for me to understand my own unhappy family a little better. Of course he never said so, and even now, all these years later, I cannot be sure what his intention was at the beginning. Certainly it was not sex. Let me dispense with that immediately. It was well known that I had no interest in it. "John," I said, "I am an awful tourist. I had no intention of slogging through the bloody jungle with binoculars. I am an editor. It's all I do. I read. I have no other life." "You love to eat," he said. "I saw you polish off that curry." "Well, it was very good curry." "Then Kuala Lumpur will be paradise for you. Darling, I've known K.L. for almost as long as I've known you." Of course, he did not know me at all. "What's the worst thing that can happen? I'll make a pass at you? Mix, for God's sake, it's a bloody week of your life. We'll all be mouldering in the ground soon enough. Do come." That did it. The mouldering. After lunch I burgled our safe and took the last of the magazine's petty cash. In the King's Road I purchased £45 in travellers' cheques, a pair of sandals, and a summer frock. So prepared, I entered that maze from which, 13 years later, I have yet to escape. In those days it was a 30-hour flight from London to Kuala Lumpur, but we suffered a long delay in Tehran due to fog in Dubai, and then an interminable wait in Singapore. You would think that 42 hours would be a sufficient opportunity for the two of us to begin our conversation, but it seemed that Slater liked to sleep on aeroplanes, and he was so drugged with phenobarb and whiskey when we landed in Singapore that the air hostesses thought he was dead. He passed through Malaysian immigration in a wheelchair, and so my very first memory of Kuala Lumpur involves the difficulties of transporting a large and meaty man into a taxi, and from there into the extraordinarily kitsch foyer of the Merlin Hotel. And there his fame preceded him, thank God. Apart from the awful gold and tartan decor of the Merlin, my only impressions of this foreign capital were heat and smells, sewage, floral scents, rotting fruit, and a general mustiness which seeped into my skin and permeated my large, plain room, where someone had written, "Fuck Little Duck," in grey pencil beside the toilet bowl. The next day Slater did not answer his telephone, and I became concerned that he really might have died. Then, on the off chance, I checked with the desk, and discovered he and his luggage had departed the hotel. No message. Just gone. I immediately felt like someone who has been passionately seduced, fucked, and abandoned. This is not a pleasant feeling at the best of times, and all my old animus against Slater came surging back. I was far too angry to read, and far too agitated to sleep, and this was how I came to be inspecting the Indian haberdashers on Batu Road. I like to buy fabrics, but nothing pleased me here. The batik was rather coarse and opportunistic, not nearly as refined as the Indonesian fabrics, and yet I purchased a piece, as tourists do. From Batu Road I continued window shopping, not liking anything, until I found myself in a noisy street of Chinese shop-houses, with the unlikely name of Jalan Campbell. I did not like it very much either, although the buildings offered a continuous colonnade, and I was grateful for the shade. If not